Welcome back to Process Podcast. Today is a first of its kind. We are doing a live podcast. We've got Kevin Field, an online coach, coming to talk to myself and the team all about building an online business, specifically in the world of coaching and how to utilize social media to grow your following, grow your audience, and ultimately attract leads for your business. Enjoy. Kev, welcome to the Process Podcast, my friend.
Thank you for the invite. Last minute, but
This is very last minute. This isn't, well, it's last minute in a few senses. But one, you were supposed to come in and just have a little chit chat to the team about social media, your coaching journey, and what's been happening. But we now have a live audience. Let's hear some noise from the live audience.
Come on, ladies.
So we have turned Coastal Fitness PD into a live podcast. So if you weren't already shitting yourself, like this should get you shaking your boots a little bit, but it's not.
It's not yet. Not yet.
Not yet, right?
Get the eyes in first, but
let's start with a quick introduction. Yeah. Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Kevin Field. I am 29 years old and I am an online fitness coach. Recently made that transition into full-time online coaching 2 months ago. I used to be a gym manager back in Singapore.
What was the reason for the shift into the online coaching space?
It was always something that I wanted to do. I wanted the idea of being location free was the main one. I traveled quite a bit. And I quite enjoy traveling as well. I love experiencing all these different areas. And everyone who knows me will say, hey, you just stay around Southeast Asia mostly, but I mean, it's still travel. And I wanted to find a way to still do what I do in terms of coaching, in terms of like helping people, but from anywhere. So when I was managing the gym in Singapore, obviously you have to be in Singapore to manage a gym, right? You can't really go to these different locations. So I felt like by making this transition, it'll allow me to do the best of both, live the life that I actually want to live long term.
So I feel like it wasn't that long ago that you started like putting more energy into your social media. I think it wasn't actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't when you moved into becoming an online coach. I think it actually started a bit before that. When did this whole like social media journey of you putting yourself out there a little bit more, when did that start?
So, I mean, for people who've been following me for a while, and even back in the day when Snapchat was the main thing instead of Instagram, I really love the idea of posting my training footage on social media in some way, shape or form. Just as a way of just documenting my progress and my journey from there. I still have some videos of me doing like my first squats, my first clean. It was the most horrible thing you'll ever see. But when I really started leaning into like content creation properly was maybe around March. When I was doing the ultra marathon challenge, because I was really trying to document that whole journey. So I think that was sometime early 2024 is when I started documenting everything, doing the selfie run videos and all of that. And then from that, it kind of leaned in with me wanting to go into online coaching as well. And they kind of worked hand in hand. So to kind of answer that question, maybe for the last year and a half, I would say, is where I've been really trying to push a bit more content out.
When you started this in the last year and a half, what was the intention? Like, was it followers? Was it, build your online business? Was it get more leads? Curious to hear like what the motivation behind embarking on this journey was.
So I think the focus of it has changed. Like obviously now it's very lead orientated and making sure I'm using this as a tool to grow my business. But at the start, it was mainly just getting myself out there. Like I've been following a lot of fitness influencers for years, like the YouTube OGs, like people like Christian Guzman, Matt Ogus and things like that. And I've always really liked that idea. I mean, Zach Perna as well, and which we'll come to later. But I always like that idea of just documenting all these kind of things because I think it's important to show, because I've been a coach for 5-6 years now. It's important to show your side of the journey as well and showing that as much as you're coaching these people, you're also putting yourself, you're almost like practicing what you preach. So I thought it was really important to get that out there and show like, hey, look, all these things I'm making you guys do, I am also doing as well. And I think it just really helps you build that connection with your clients and the people you're working with as well.
So okay, let's talk about Zach real quick. So Zach is your mentor. You've been working with Zach for how long now?
Since March, the end of March. It was the week before the 7th. I remember that because I remember on the sales call, I was like, look, I want to start this after the 7th. Like, it's going to be a big week at the run as well. And it was like, no, lock in now. And I was like, yeah, you know what? It's probably a better idea.
Nice.
Get yourself in. But yeah, no, so it's what, 6 months, 7 months now?
I think in that 6 months, I think the outside world looking in at your social media, I think we can all see like a real increase in cadence, quality, engagement. I think a lot of us in this room have seen it and like really impressed. We actually talk about it quite a bit. Like we really like what you're
There we
doing.
go. It's working.
And then, but you know, I was fortunate enough for you to introduce me to Zach, and we had Zach on the podcast recently, and you know, the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago talking about your journey with social media, and which I took a lot away from. And then speaking to Zach, you know, he talks about it so like eloquently and makes really complex, confusing topics in the world of social media seem very, very simple. And I thought like this is just going to be a perfect time for us to like connect our conversation and what you're doing with some of the things that he's been talking about, and basically how you've applied that to you and your own social media. Because I think here at Coastal Fitness, we've recently embarked on a bit of a journey of trying to improve our game on social media. When I say game, I think we have Izzy, who does a really great job of managing like our business accounts. But Izzy's always been saying to us, guys, like, you need to build your personal brands. And if we want to really make an impact, you know, in terms of how much noise we're making on social media, which ultimately helps build our business, it really comes down to the collective efforts of everyone within this team. And I think at some points, I haven't fully embraced and understood that. But now I can definitely see like why that's powerful, because, you know, we've got people who've used to be a part of this team who are now in other teams who are doing a phenomenal job. And we can just see how like, you know, this just adds fuel to the ultimate like engine or whatever that business is. So we've recently started getting together at the start of the week and talked about, okay, well, how do we want to plan our content for the business? So we've got individuals within a team who have responsibilities for trying to almost be like the face of certain aspects of our business. And then we kind of just like brainstorm some ideas on a Monday, and then we're going to go out and execute it with Al, our content director, within the week. And then we'll post that in a week or so's time. But I think like having some form of framework, like where does one even start? So when you talk about engagement, like I'm seeing like funny videos and I'm seeing educational videos, and I'm seeing coaches not even talk about anything to do with their clients. They're just doing stupid shit, and it's not even related to coaching. I think like, where does this whole game start?
Well, I mean, there's a huge rabbit hole you can go down with that. But I think the main thing first is just understanding what you want to use your profile for. So if you're using your page to get leads, you would approach it a certain way. If you just want a following, you'd approach it a different way. So the first thing that you always have to do is just determine, okay, what am I using my page for? It's like myself personally, that is essentially how I market my business. So therefore, the content that I need to post has to match that. Whilst you can see other creators who are just documenting their life can just do that and do some really simple things and get a huge following from that. So first of all, it's just deciding what you actually want to do with your page. So judging from this, obviously you want to build a business and build what Coastal's brand is as well, and the personal brands within that. So how I would look at this is just think, okay, what problems am I trying to solve and what person am I trying to be? Because that's how we attract people into this ecosystem. So in terms of just general content ideas, I would just identify, okay, who is the ideal person that I want to work with? Or what is the persona of myself that I want to get out there? And with both, you have to be extremely, like, break it down, just be as extremely genuine as you can. So for example, like with the identity you're trying to promote, I've done things where you feel like you're posting what you think people want to see. And to be honest, it's very stressful and it never works. All right. Recently, I've shifted to like, okay, what do I actually just do on a day-to-day basis? All right. I run, I do things in the morning. I love my morning routines. And I balance strength training, running, and living a good life. All right. So I was like, okay, let's just start posting all about that and see what that attracts, and hopefully that will attract the people that I actually want to work with. All right. And then in terms of the problems you're trying to solve, just think, okay, with this person who's trying to get this certain lifestyle or this certain training goal, all right, what are the things stopping them from getting there? All right. I guarantee if you just spend a little bit of time, you can probably find 5 to 10 problems, especially if you guys are working in the coaching industry. I'm sure you've heard every single excuse of why people can't do certain things, right? So this is what you use as your fuel in your content. All right. So all of these problems, first of all, show that you can relate with that problem. Which is why I think posting about your own personal journey is so important, because like whether you agree with it or not, a lot of clients or prospects will look at coaches and idolize them in a certain way. All right. And I don't know if you guys agree, but like a lot of times say, hey, you're a coach, that's why you can do all these incredible things. But we have to remember, we weren't always coaches and we built ourselves up to this point. So as long as we can show that we can relate with that and like, hey, look, when I started, like I use my running as an example. 2.5 years ago, I was running 5Ks at like a 6-minute pace and my heart rate was like 180. I thought I was going to die. Now I'm at a point where I'm pushing that pace quite a bit. And I've just been documenting how I got there. So people can think like, oh, actually that result or that sort of dream outcome isn't so out of reach. All right. So I know I'm going a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but that's the kind of in terms of like the content that you want to post. Now, in terms of organizing it, so this is where things like the value posts, the more relatable posts, and then the more funny sort of top of funnel attract people in. And this is where we did use all of these as different tools with different outcomes. So starting at the top, these more funny, relatable posts that people love posting, the main focus of this is just to bring people onto your page. All right. You're not going to really get too much out of that apart from just people just being, oh, that's funny, let's see what this guy's got, what this guy's doing. All right, that's about as much engagement as you realistically get from that, and that's okay. Like, you just have to understand that and use that as a tool. Then comes the value posts. All right, so in this day and age, I find value and the sort of knowledge is so accessible now that you do have to be a little bit more creative with this, because every single person out there is, hey, this is 3 tips to do this. Here's 5 tips to do this, right? But you can also just go on Google and search how to do this. And you can probably do that in a faster way and solve that problem. So if you're going to start doing these value posts, then you do have to be creative in terms of how you get that message across. This is where like hooks, things like that becomes a bit more important, and that will save it for a little bit later on. And then the sort of relatability post. Again, this is just to humanize you as a person and show just what's going on in your life. So in my example, it's like the morning routines and the runs. Essentially just showing everyone that you are doing what you say you do. All right. So in terms of just structuring your content, those are the 3 sort of main areas that I would look at. Showing the person that you are and that you are embodying all these things that you value. Solving problems for the clients that you want to work with. And then top of funnel, just funnier stuff to get people onto your page as well. And if you have a good balance of all 3, you should have a pretty good functioning Instagram page.
Love it. Anyone got any questions? Okay. One of the things that Zach said, I love that, by the way. One of the things that Zach said, he talked about very similar to what you just said there, like the information is so readily available now. And I think when I'm thinking about my own social media, I think in the past, I've always been trying to give like lots of knowledge, right? Like, here's how I do this, here's how you would do this. And I feel like now when I'm creating that stuff, I'm like, kind of everyone just knows this now. And he talked about this concept of like what we don't do enough as, you know, with our own social media pages, or let's say as creators, is like we don't embrace the weirdness of ourselves enough. And he said that something he's really big on is like, you just got to put yourself out there. So when you said at the start of this, like, decide the person you want to put out to the world, and then you said it has to be authentic, you know, how, I guess those are almost like 2 different things, right? If we're just being really authentic, we shouldn't have to think about who we're putting out to the world. Or is there some nuance in that we do need to think about?
So in terms of it, again, it really depends on what you want to be on social media, right? So for example, the people who just post loads of meme pages, like, I'm sure if you met them, they'd be pretty normal people as well, right? But I think is when it comes down to like niching down, which I hear all the time now when it comes to content. I think the big way to look at it is you are your own niche, and there's no one out there that is exactly like you. So I think a good thing that Zach's taught me is like, you have to learn to embrace that. So if you are a little bit weird in person, get that on camera, all right? Because that's going to be your point of difference, all right? So almost look at it like you're trying to introduce yourself to a load of different strangers. Like, once you kind of get a bit more comfortable, that weirdness comes out, and you just have to get that side to you out as well. But if you have, I think there's a limit to that. So let's say you go super, super weird to the point where you kind of lose sight of what you're trying to do. So in this case, if we're coaching profiles trying to build our personal brand, and you go a little bit too far down the weird tangent to the point where if someone comes onto your page and is like, is this person a coach, or is this a person who just does all these strange dances and whatnot? That's where I think you have to be like authentic whilst embracing, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So how have you struck that balance with your own page? Like, how do you think about structuring, let's say, your week of content, you know, like balancing entertainment versus value versus whatever these other buckets are, relatability?
So I've gone the straight just quantity approach now, because I've tried before where you're trying to choose which one is best, and then you kind of get caught up with the ideas of like, okay, if I post a reel, it doesn't do good, let's say, and then you're like, oh, I've wasted my reel for the day. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to completely remove that from the equation and make a system where I can post all 3 per day. So if anyone follows my page, you'll see the morning ones are always going to be either a morning routine or whatever run I did that in that sort of vicinity of time. And that will be so consistent going forward because one, I find them really easy to make, and it's really easy to sort of film and prepare and edit. The middle of the day is always going to be my value content. So that'll either be just straight information, which I always do as carousels. Again, easy to batch up and mass produce if you need it, as long as you do a little bit of planning, or some form of documentation of myself, but a little bit more sort of personal. So like I'll actually like speak about what's going on. So documenting my marathon journey is probably like the best example of that. And then the evening ones are always going to be the sort of funnier, easier to make kind of memey kind of content as well. Again, think about it like at the end of the day, when you're doom scrolling, do you want to be reading through the 10 best ways to PB your marathon, or do you just want to watch something that's really easily digestible as you're doom scrolling in bed, right? So I try to kind of match it around that, but I'll do all 3 every single day.
So do you actually think about the type of content you're posting and the timing of when you're posting it?
Not to, outside of just scheduling it from my own sanity more than anything else. I don't think it actually makes a huge amount of difference. Like I think when people say, oh, well, the ideal posting times, I think that is just complete like a complete myth. You can post whenever you want. If the content is good, Instagram will push it out. Like it doesn't matter if you post it 3 o'clock in the morning or not. I think if you want to go down that rabbit hole in terms of the analytics, I think the people who are most active on my profile apparently are at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to post something, if that makes sense. But yeah, for me, it was just a way of structuring it so I know that I can just keep posting this consistently. That's the only way I kind of organize everything.
What do you think? What do you think is the thing that stops more people who have a lot of like, I mean, everyone's got some weirdness to them, right? I think a lot of people, especially like in this team, have got really good things to say, really good things that might benefit a lot of the world. What do you think is the thing that stops most people like starting on this journey?
I think honestly, it's just the fear of being judged. Like I think when people start posting on social media, they're like, oh my God, like if I post this thing, like everyone's gonna be watching and like, oh my God, what's gonna happen here? And then I think the more you do it, the more you realize that you're not that important to people, at least not yet, and not at the start, especially. Like a good thing that I always like to do to ground myself is like, if you see something weird, like going on, like walking down the street, someone doing something weird, right? How long do you actually remember that happening? You'll probably forget about it within the hour. And like content is the same thing, which is why the consistency side to it is so important, because like if you're trying to get yourself out there, you want to make sure that everyone is consistently seeing you do things. So if you just post one and you're like, and nothing will happen, people will forget about it. So I don't know if that kind of answers the question.
What were some of the other things that you've done to like help you get over, or maybe you didn't even suffer from that at all?
I think, well, for me, it was more like an example of me trying to overcome that was actually the talking head videos. Like when I used to do them, like right when I started doing the talking head videos, I was super robotic. Like you could see that it was scripted. I was just kind of there like all frozen up and like, oh God, like what am I saying? But now it's just like, again, like any skill, it's just reps. So what I did just to get used to that is just start doing it more. I know it sounds pretty simple in terms of a solution, but like I now just every single day on stories, I will do some form of video where I'm just talking about what I did. So normally I always do them post runs or post training, like, oh, I did this run, it felt great, win your mornings, all that. But it may seem pretty inconsequential, but it's just like, hey, look, this is just another opportunity to get yourself in front of camera. And then something that like a little trick that I always did, actually, I put it on selfie camera whenever I film myself talking now and just pretend I'm talking to someone. I find it so much easier to do instead of like just talking to the back of your phone, because that can be quite intimidating. A bit like, when you have cameras on you for the first time, you're like, oh God, like I make sure I say the same thing, like the right thing. Like if you get too caught up in sort of perfectionism of it, you're never going to post anything and you're going to stress yourself out massively. If you realize that like, hey, I'm going to post something that's 75% perfect, let's say, and realize that people, if it doesn't do too well, people will probably forget about it within 45 minutes, it just takes the pressure away. And then you can just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors today, Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, The Process, to grab yours today. Nice. I mean, I know you're basically taking this like quantity approach right now. I think you're posting 3 times a day.
Yeah.
What is the system that you created for yourself to allow you to actually like get that kind of output?
So firstly, film everything that you do, like literally everything.
So you just got your photo roll is just full of
I think
loads of shit.
Yeah, so I got my new phone relatively recently, and I got up to like 14,000 videos on that phone within 2 months. Absolute nightmare in terms of storage and organizing that. But yeah, if you have all this footage available, it is so easy to piece it together based on what you're actually trying to do. Obviously, you guys have an in-house content creator, which will help massively in terms of getting good shots too. But yeah, first of all, film everything that you can think of and anything that you find is relevant to what you're trying to post about. Secondly, is actually plan what you're going to post. A lot of times, if you're like, oh, I'm going to post something today, let's think about something on the spot, it's going to be something that crumbles straight away. So I plan 6 weeks of content. All right. Every single post. But luckily, the morning ones and the runs are always going to be there, so you don't really have to plan that. It's more the middle value ones, and the sort of quote ones as well. So I will plan that 6 weeks ahead. And if you think about it as well, you can recycle that 6 weeks again and again and again. Because again, if I ask you guys, tell me one post you saw a month ago. Probably nothing. Even if you've saved it, I guarantee it's gone. Like it's disappeared into the net. So
as in people delete it and then just repost it.
You can just repost like things as well. If you go like, especially now, you can see on Instagram the best performing reels, and you'll see all of them. They're all exactly the same. If you find something that works, you just keep doubling down on it. So if you have this magical 6 weeks of content, which will address all the pain points that you want to solve, gets everything about you out there as well, and then when you get towards the end of that 6 weeks, you can say, okay, these posted well. I'm going to keep them in to some degree. Maybe just do it in a different format. So let's say a value post that I did as a carousel did well. Like, okay, let's do the exact same bit of value, but as a reel and talk about it. All right. So then it's like the same information, just packaged differently. And think about it as coaches. I mean, like, how many messages do we have to actually talk about realistically? There's only going to be so much, right? So if we just map out everything that you think you would talk about and use your own experiences on the gym floor to dictate what those conversations will be and what those problems are. And then, yeah, just keep going through it again and again and again until something new comes out. And then when something new comes out, some new knowledge, then we can talk about it and then add that into the cycle and take away the outdated stuff. So yeah, I think don't overcomplicate it. Like just think how, I always think if you just go back to thinking how people use social media. So when you're actually consuming content, what is your mindset, right? You're probably just leaned over on the couch, just doom scrolling away, right? So if you think the viewer is consuming it that way, just make content that kind of steers towards that, not overcomplicating it massively.
I think something that stops me posting more is like when I sit down to create the content, or I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that this has to be like amazing.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't get like thousands and thousands of views or shares or saves or likes, whatever, then I'm like, well, what's the point? So I think that's something that definitely like inhibits me from actually like putting something out there. But when I think the way that you're saying it there is like, well, when I think about if I am scrolling and just swiping, like, I can't remember anything. I couldn't tell you even what I probably saw this morning.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of disappears in the archives really, really fast. People don't actually care all that much. I think that immediately kind of like lowers the pressure that I put on myself to create like really good content. I don't know. Does anyone else feel that same thing? We haven't really utilized this live audience at all yet.
Yeah, I think one thing I kind of resonate with you is like, I feel like if I'm going to put something with value, I really don't want to sound like an idiot, because you're going to be challenged when you're out in a public space and you're basically putting yourself out there to be challenged, right? And sometimes I'll literally write a post up. The video content is always there. Like you said, I've got plenty on my phone reel. Then I'll write it all out about that doesn't look good enough. And I also don't want to chat GPT it because that's very obvious. And then I end up just deleting that and I just go with what I know, which is basically just posting my life. So yeah, that's why like my coaching page has been very stagnant recently because I'm like worried to put my thoughts out onto a platform to be challenged. And I think, just listening, and obviously it's not something that everyone does. Sometimes people just post like inspirational things or whatever it might be, but it's definitely something that I would like to step into, but I don't really know how to take that step is, I guess where I'm at, whether you have advice for that or not. But yeah.
I think the best bit of advice is just post first. You'll learn more from posting and seeing because if you're worried about how it will come across, and let's say you post something that is like, oh, this may be a bit questionable, people might challenge that, and it's crickets and no one actually says anything, that fear will be gone straight away. But you don't know that until you actually post and put yourself out there. Like I also find that with like the more simple the message you're pushing out, the more likely people will resonate with that. So if you go like, obviously as a CrossFit Games competitor, like if you go really, really far like into that niche, understand that you're going to be speaking to a smaller crowd and therefore the engagement's not going to be huge. But if that's the angle that you want to go at, like, hey, I want to target this super specific group of people, then again, that's absolutely fine. If you want to speak to a larger audience, though, you have to resonate with a larger audience. So therefore the super specific will never work. So like I find like let's say with the running content that I post, if I post about, hey, this is like something I've learned about just marathon training, you're only speaking to people who do marathons and the engagement's always gonna be lower. But like if I do something about like habits or things like that, which can resonate to any kind of context, they'll always do better.
What's your takeaway, Ant?
I think I do want to start next week, but it's like, again, it's like, a lot of my content that I do put out and the stuff that does do well, whether I want it to do well or not, whether it's just like a highlight reel or something, a lot of the time I do get a lot of positive things and I get a lot of negative things as well. The negative stuff actually doesn't bother me, but when I think of it in a professional light, as in this is my career, the negative stuff bothers me. Does that make sense? When people like take the piss out of me or abuse me online, I just genuinely find it quite funny a lot of the time. But I have a feeling, I just don't like it if it's going to happen to me in a professional light. But I guess I should just see it in the same way. And if it's something I actually believe in, and I'm posting about it, then I should really be able to back it up, or at least have a healthy debate about it online if needs be.
Exactly that. It just opens up the conversation, right? But I'm sure like everyone has posted something that's it can be challenged in some way, shape, or form, and like if you post that and someone kind of challenges it and you don't want to have the conversation again, if you don't have that conversation, like what's the worst thing that actually happens? Probably nothing, right? Again, that post will disappear into the web unless you post something
just
really.
Delete it and then delete my page.
Just delete it and disappear. But like, yeah, I mean, like when you start posting opinions about things, like not everyone's going to agree with it unless it's a really straightforward opinion, right? So I think that conversation also is very, very good because again, if you can navigate that conversation, people will see that. And if you navigate it positively, again, that's only going to give you more credit in that example as well.
Okay, can I ask a question about like calls to action? So basically this concept of like DM me or, comment this word, this, or, drop me a message to get started with coaching. I think a lot of us in this room, the drive behind why we're doing social media, I think for a lot of us is ultimately to grow our coaching businesses, like as individuals, whether it's, trying to attract personal training clients or, just trying to, increase our, I guess like, our position in the social order of coaches. So I guess it's very business driven. So in terms of like, everything you're saying has been amazing, but in terms of like, you've actually got this intention of trying to grow your personal training business. So is just putting out relatable content, providing lots of value, is that enough? Do we, can we just sit back and put that content out there and expect, people just to reach out and start coaching with us? Or is there something that we could be utilizing to actually like, grow the business?
So I think if you think that posting content is going to be like the single driving thing to getting you clients like straight away, like people coming at you with credit cards, especially at the start, you'll probably be disappointed pretty quickly. unless you have such a huge stack of undeniable proof that you can get the result that you're trying to sell. If you're going to look at this from a business example. So how you can look at this is, instead of expecting people to just, again, buy straight away, every bit of content, every bit of engagement is just your opportunity to start a conversation. So how I look at content from a business standpoint now is every like, every follow, every comment is a conversation that I can have. And again, one conversation is not going to guarantee a sale. But if you're having 100 conversations a day, all right, chances are you're going to convince 10 of them that the coaching is a good idea and that it's something that will help them out. And again, if you're going with the intention of actually helping them rather than, hey, look, I'm trying to steal your money, then if they see that as, again, you're genuinely trying to help them, then you nurture that, and then eventually it will lead to a call or a close. All right. So with that, that's where you start linking all the numbers together. So let's say I'm posting 3 times a day. That leads to, let's say, maybe 200 likes in total. That's 200 conversations, all right? 200 conversation leads to X many calls. X many calls leads to X many closes. And if you start looking at it from that sort of numbers game, then it's easy to judge, okay, this is how much I should be posting. This is what I need to be posting, all right? And then you can see what kind of posts do better in terms of getting the people who actually buy, people who need a little bit more time as well. But yeah, I think look at it as just content is a way of getting people into your ecosystem. Then once they're there, how you approach them depends on what your overall goal is. Again, if we circle back to the start, like what do you actually want to use this page for? What do you want to use this engagement for? So if it's business oriented, use them to get into the ecosystem and then start talking with them. Understand their position, understand why they resonated with your content, understand what problems they have, and if you can solve them. All right.
So are you literally sending a DM to every person that likes
a
video?
It's a fun life.
Wow.
Every single person who engages with any bit of content gets a DM from me. Ooh.
So with 200 conversations a day, how much time are you putting into this?
So as an online trader, the way I look at the sort of messaging and that side of things, like that's the day job of the job. So like I think like when you look at the sort of conception of what an online trainer is, it's like, oh, you can just work from anywhere. You go into the beaches, you're in Bali, you're living the life. But like this is the job until you get to the point where you can delegate that to a team to actually start doing that for you. But especially early on, that is what you do most of your day. So let's say I have an 8-hour work day. I'll dedicate probably 4 or 5 hours of that to messaging people. And you're just on your phone, on your computer, just typing away. It's the life. But yeah, no, but it's part of it. It's like, again, if you start looking at it, it's like, hey, look, I need to have this many conversations to close a client, then you're going to be very, very keen to have as many conversations as possible.
What are the rough statistics on what percentage of DMs that you send can potentially convert to, let's say, a pre-qualification call or even a client? Like, are there any rough stats to like give us some perspective? If you're sending 200 messages, like what are you likely to actually achieve in terms of a call?
All right, so let's look at it this way. Okay, if I look at November as an example, so in November I sent out 800. I did 800 intentional conversations.
So are you tracking this?
Yes.
So there's like you got a little spreadsheet at home or something that you tick off every time you do one?
So in terms of the number of messages, I use a system called Go High Level, which tracks everything. And you can do all your sort of like website landing pages, all your funnels can go through there. It is an absolute nightmare to navigate. So if you're going to utilize that, take the time to learn. It's a very overwhelming experience at the start. And I also use the Meta Business Suite as well, just to kind of keep track of more qualified leads, let's say. But from those 800 conversations, it brought in, I think it was 7 calls. And from 7 calls, I got 4 closes. But I think when you start linking the messages of the calls, I think it's 2 different parts of the process. So you can get a sales call horrifically wrong, and that's nothing to do with sort of the DM side of things as well. So, but yeah, those are kind of rough numbers from November, let's say.
Okay, so 800 messages
leads to
7 calls.
7 calls.
How many did you end up converting? I know that's a different
4.
process. Okay, so that just shows like the amount, the how many seeds you need to plant for a flower to grow.
Exactly that. So like, again, so when it comes to like sort of the meshing side of things, if you do the math there and it's like, okay, 200 messages leads to 1 close, you're going to want to do 200 messages all the time and finding any system, any way to have as many of those messages as possible.
And do you have like is there a bot that's like helping you this, or is this like you're literally like bashing out these letters?
Yeah. So for the most part, sometimes you got to get a little bit creative with, I do use a little bit of AI to kind of draft up some of the messages, but I am literally manually messaging. There's no bot that can automatically send. You can set up funnels to do that with using things like ManyChat. Even Go High Level has that to a degree as well. But for the most part, I'm messaging all of them.
Wow. I think you were just on a mentorship week, right? So I think you, along with lots of other people that were working with Zach, all got together in Koh Samui for a week and basically, chatted about this stuff, I guess. And you said some of the biggest earners, like the biggest ballers in that group, what was the kind of like frequency of messaging that they're doing?
Yeah, so I think that was the biggest sort of perspective shift for me. So like, for example, the November where I did 800 messages was like the best month I've ever done in terms of quantity of messages. And some of the coaches do that on the daily. So you're like, oh, okay. So if it's just a scale thing, then at least it makes it a little bit easier. Like, okay, I can just do more. And that's the way to kind of grow your business. But yeah, there's ways to get to a point where you are literally messaging 800,000 people per day. And these can be anything from like, likes, followers, going through past followers. Like one of the businesses that was working there, they have a 52-week follow-up system, which wow, like completely blew my mind. But then when you kind of look at how they organize there, it's very similar to like how I kind of look at the content side of things as well. You can always draw those parallels. Like, okay, so if you just approach it the same way, map out like these are all the potential responses, all the messages that you can kind of send, and then you just plug and play. It actually becomes it seems like an overwhelming thing, but like once you put that system in place, you're like, oh, actually, this is not too bad to execute.
Yeah, I think a system is key.
System is everything. Yeah, for whatever you're doing. But you can apply that to programming, coaching, like literally any skill. If you have a system that allows you to build it and scale, then it's going to be much easier to do than if you're just winging it. Coming from someone who spent 2-3 months winging it, that's where it becomes a little bit of a nightmare.
Okay, so I think maybe to like, nice, all the hands are going up.
I have a question. Do you actually feel like you're still a coach? Because for me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I love coaching, I love programming. And then if I'm spending an 8-hour workday and I'm spending 6 out of those 8 hours on social media, responding to people, creating content, I'm then doing a tiny proportion of what I would normally do in my workday of what I actually love doing, which is coaching or programming. So do you still feel like your job is as an online coach, or do you feel that it's actually you're just a
online DM messaging?
Yeah.
It depends on how you look at the side of messaging. So when I'm messaging these people, I'm like, if you go into the intention of just like, hey, is there a problem that you potentially might be having that I can solve in the DMs first? Then you still have that sort of coaching touch to it. I think when it comes to your, like the biggest thing here is like, once you have clients, like we're going big on the sort of marketing side of things as well. But remember, the marketing side of things brings the clients in for you to work with and help. So as long as you're maintaining that connection with your current client base as well, I think that's a big thing that I missed for a month or two when I really went full time in this, is I went so far into like getting new clients that sometimes the current clients are going to be like, hey, look, like we're still here, right? So I remember for example, how I check in with my clients now, I went from doing video like Looms, where you have all their program there, you have a little corner video, and you send your feedback to that. Now I'm shifting those back to actual calls, because like you need that personal touch. You spend so much time behind a screen. It's actually nice to interact with people as well. And when you're giving feedback, I know everyone will probably agree it's much easier to do that when you're having a conversation, because you can bounce ideas off each other than just being like, hey, this is what you did, this is what you need to do, and everything like that. And that's the only communication you have. And yeah, I still dedicate a good hour of my day to messaging my current clients. And I tell them always just to message me whenever they need. Like if you need a call, jump on a call, like we can talk. Like that's the whole point. We're still working with people. It's just the way you're delivering the coaching is a little bit different, as you don't see them face to face, but you're still coaching them as well.
I would say I think something that I think about a lot when I see people trying to get into this space, especially coaches, is what you fundamentally have to have is you have to have a good product and a service, right? So that like we can't skip the actual coaching part and having a good system there to deliver great results. I think a lot of people they almost like ignore that. They put so much energy into like the lead generation and marketing side, which is great. You're going to bring people to your business, but then if your actual business isn't delivering what it says it is, then you're going to be kind of stuck in this rat race of just constantly acquiring leads and then having high churns, which is not what we want. Like ultimate thing for us, we always talk about it, is like retention is the most important name of the game for us. And, you know, if we can get people onto, you know, recurring revenue services for the long run, that's what we need to pour the majority of our energy into. And then, you know, the marketing is obviously a key part to just growing the business continually. Would you agree with that?
No, 100%. Like, I think the best way to have stable income is to get clients and keep them. So if you're getting clients and you're losing them, like, unless the speed of which you're replacing them is so good, which I don't think really anyone really has, unless they have a product which is like, hey, look, you're in 12 weeks and then you're out. That's it. But again, like, if you think about coaching as a whole, like, once you finish one goal, there are so many different avenues that you can go down. And as long as, and this is why keeping in touch with the coaching side of things is so important, because if you just focus on like one thing, then yeah, people will leave because you solve one problem, and then what do you do now? So this is where I think the coaching side of things is really fun. I still get that enjoyment because you have people who, let's say, finish their weight loss phase. Like, okay, as you know, I'm big in the running. So like, okay, let's start building up your running performance now, because then we can start focusing on that for the next 12 weeks, 6 months. All right, you've done that. High rocks coming around the corner. Let's focus on that. You can always shift the goalpost, and it's a good way to keep your current clients in, keep them happy, and therefore build that coaching relationship too. I think it's so important, like, to maintain that long-term relationship with your clients. Yeah, and if you are constantly losing clients, then yeah, before you even focus on getting more people in, you really have to look at the back end systems to be like, okay, where's the holes here? What promises am I not delivering here?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at as a team. I think we've worked really hard on building a good product, that our retention is high, but I think we are probably just seeing that the leads are not kind of where we want them to be to achieve the growth numbers that we want. And this is kind of like why we're basically here today. It's like, well, we're probably really underutilizing the social media thing. We can do a better job with it. So I think we've kind of acknowledged and identified the area of our like growth strategy that we're like not crushing. Did you have a question now? You put your hand up. Question's gone. Someone else have a question there? No, good. Awesome. Okay. I think where I want to probably wrap this up, this has been so good, by the way, Kev, but if someone is like, we talked about what this could potentially look like for the guys who are like crushing it. These guys have, you know, amazing systems, you know, 800 messages a day, putting out multiple pieces of content every single day. I think for a lot of people, they're hearing that and it's like, holy shit, that's really overwhelming. I'm so far away from that right now. What's your advice for someone who's like just starting out on this journey, who wants to, maybe they're looking at their own social media right now and they're like, okay, I'm not really doing anything right now. I have a lot that I want to say. Where do I start?
Document your own journey. That is the easiest, lowest barrier to start, because it is a unique story, first of all, and you're in full control of how that looks as well. So just whatever you are doing, like obviously as coaches, you guys will probably be training for things as well. Start there, because from there you can say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing this. This is something I've overcome. This is something I've achieved. And then you can start just branching out from there based on what people are responding well to. But I think you are always going to be your most interesting thing to talk about. So start there. It's a bit like when you're meeting someone new, like what do you do at the start? Like when you're introducing yourself, to talk about each other. Like you talk about, hey, this is me, this is what I do, this is where I come from. And so start in that kind of mindset and then branch out.
Love it. Kev, I know this whole podcast has been about you sharing, like, you know, what you've done, and as you've entered the world of online coaching, has really been around social media and lead generation. But at the bottom of all this, you're a coach first, and you know you're a really good coach. You've worked for one of the most reputable brands in Hong Kong. You helped them start an amazing business in Singapore, and now you've kind of like ventured out into the world as a solo online coach. So where can people find out more about you, and how can they work with you?
So obviously my Instagram would be the first place to go. Kevin Field underscore coaching. Document all my living, running, and lifting all on there. And then I think that's probably just the main sort of point to go, because everything you want to learn about me is realistically going to be through there. So go to the Instagram first, see what you enjoy, and then reach out, message, say hi.
And if you don't, you'll message them.
And I'll message them. They'll get an auto message as soon as if they follow. So, and then I'll send them a little voice note.
Kev, this has been so good. Thank you for sharing so much wisdom and your story. Keep up all the amazing work. And I know that our listeners would have taken so much away from this. So I appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.